Look, folks, let me tell you a story I know very well. One of those that seems like a soap opera, but is real life. Our protagonist's name is Emily, a girl who, from a young age, already showed signs that she wasn't going to follow the path her mother wanted so badly. Mrs. Mary, Emily's mother, dreamed of seeing her daughter dressed in a habit, following the religious life. "Ah, my daughter is going to be a nun, a servant of God," she would tell the neighbors. But little did Mrs. Nun, Mary know, Emily had other plans, and these plans had nothing to do with prayer and meditation. Since she was little, Emily was one of those girls who loved mischief. You know that kid who can't resist an opportunity to cause some trouble? That was her. And so she grew up, full of life, a mischievous smile on her face, and a look that made it clear she was always planning some prank. Mrs. Mary, poor thing, was always on edge. She tried every way to guide her daughter towards the path of faith, but Emily only wanted one thing: to live life to the fullest, and of course, enjoy every moment to the max. The thing is, when Emily hit her teenage years, the situation got even more complicated. And that's when a certain guy named Jake came into the picture. Ah, Jake. He was the kind of guy who caught everyone's eye, you know? Tall, dark-haired, with a smile that could melt any heart. And of course, it didn't take long for Emily to fall head over heels for him. But there was a small detail. Mrs. Mary wanted her daughter to dedicate herself to the church, not to these worldly feelings. But honestly, who can control the heart, right? Emily, all excited, started sneaking out to meet Jake. She would make up excuses, say she was going to the prayer group, but in reality, she was in his arms. And it wasn't just an innocent romance, no. The girl was living that teenage love to the fullest, not thinking about the consequence. And when Mrs. Mary got suspicious, it was chaos. "You've got the devil in you, girl," she would shout, thinking her daughter was possessed. But deep down, Emily just wanted to be happy, and at that moment, happiness had a name and surname: Jake. And look, folks, this story of hiding the romance was getting more and more complicated, because no matter how much she tried to hide it, the passion was written all over her face. Her eyes sparkled, smiles came easily, and she spent the day sighing around the house. "I'm in love, Mom," she finally confessed, hoping it might soften Mrs. Mary's heart. No way. Her mother only became more rigid. "This is temptation, my daughter. You need to purify yourself, pray more, ask God to free you from these thoughts," she insisted. "But come on, who can just let go of a love like that, just like that?" We all know it doesn't work that way. And Emily knew it too. She was completely swept away by those feelings, and no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't think of anything but Jake. She found herself daydreaming, imagining a future with him, thinking about how it would be if they could be together without hiding from anyone. The meetings continued, and they grew more intense. Jake, of course, was also head over heels for Emily. He did everything he could to make her happy, and the two of them shared moments that seemed straight out of a romance movie. Those stolen kisses, holding hands in secret, whispered promises in each other's ears. All of this only made Emily more certain that she didn't want the nun's life her mother dreamed of. It was impossible to ignore what she felt. But life is full of surprises, right? And one day, on one of those secret outings, Emily and Jake were seen by a nosy neighbor, who, of course, wasted no time and ran to tell Mrs. Mary everything. "Your sin will condemn you and him," was the first thing her mother shouted as soon as Emily walked through the door. It was a scandal. Screaming, crying, promises that she would never see him again. But look, folks, who really believes a passion like that can be cut off just like that? Emily knew that, one way or another, she was going to find a way to be with Jake. And that's exactly what she did. Despite all the prohibitions, all the pressure, Emily kept seeing Jake, now even more carefully. That forbidden love only grew stronger. More forbidden, more exciting, isn't that right? And she knew that, sooner or later, she would have to face her mother directly, who was growing more desperate, feeling like she was losing her daughter to the world. So, after a while, Emily made a decision that changed everything. She decided she couldn't live like that anymore. Hiding, lying. She loved Jake, and she loved him for real. And that wasn't wrong. What would be wrong would be denying what she felt, not living her life because of others' expectations. One day, with her heart pounding, She came home and said, clear as day, "Mom, I'm not going to be a nun. I love Jake, and I want to live my life with him." The reaction was exactly what she expected. A shock. Mrs. Mary was speechless, collapsed on the couch, and for a moment, it seemed like the world was ending right there. Emily stood firm, with tears in her eyes, but determined. She knew she wasn't committing any sin, that her love for Jake was real, and that this was the path she wanted to follow. In time, her mother came to understand. It wasn't easy, of course, but Mrs. Mary realized that what mattered most was her daughter's happiness, and Emily finally could live her love in peace. She didn't become a nun, but she found her own way of faith, believing in love, in life, and in herself. And Jake, well, he was right there beside her as always, and together they began building their story day by day with all the challenges and joys that life brings. So folks, that's Emily's story, a girl who in the end chose to follow her heart. And if there's one lesson we can take from this, it's that no matter how difficult it may be, we should always seek our own happiness, even if the path is full of twists and turns. Because in the end, it's our life we're living. No one can live it for us. Got it?